Hi there, hope you are well. It is a beautiful summer day here today, and I want to talk about slow living and giving you some ideas about how to use it in the creative process and as a creative. I've been doing that for a couple of years now, and it has really helped me to bring some slow and calm into the creative process and eliminate stress and overwhelm in working towards my creative goals. So yeah, that is what we're gonna talk about today.
And now there's something in the air and a sparkly shimmer on our skin.
So the first thing I want to talk about is blending in slow living activities into your creative process. So this is a very effective way of pursuing more slow living in harmony with your creativity and your creative work. So this can take many different shapes and forms. There are many types of slow living activities that you can do. So for example, I come outside here to film, and that going outside, being in nature and blending that into with the process of filming brings in a slow living activity into the process of filming. So yeah, well, filming itself isn't a slow living activity really. It's quite energy intensive, although it's very fun. Coming outside still brings in that calm and just going around looking for good spots to film, and also the sort of little clips in between are really nice to film outside as well, and just watch nature and listen to nature and have the bird song in the background. It's very, very nice. So something very similar is how photography can be blended in with slow living. So even if you're photographing inside, just watching how the light is falling through the window, watching things, I find that photography can be a very mindful and meditative practice. It's something that you're essentially just watching how everything looks around you and looking for the beauty and looking for how things relate to each other. And when you're in nature and when you're walking around and you're watching nature and you're making a walk a slow living activity, then that is also how that works. Like you can go for a walk and be stressed and really distracted, but if you are experiencing the nature around you, that makes it much more of a slow living activity. You slow down, you appreciate the nature around you, and photography works in the same way. So blending those two together can make both good photography and good slow living activities. So if you're an artist, that works very similarly. If you, for example, paint or draw outside, or just use it as a tactile, slow activity that you do, not something you're trying to stress and pressure yourself about, but brings in that slow into the process of creating as well. And if you're not a visual creative, if you are a writer, for example, then think about the topics you write about. Can you somehow bring in a slow living activity in what you write about? So if you, for example, write about travel, then the act of traveling, like going for hikes or experiencing a different culture, can be slow living activities themselves as well. Or if you, for example, write recipes, and baking is a slow living activity for you. Or if it can be more abstract. Let's say you're writing a historical novel and you are shaping a character, and you go to a place where that character might have lived and try to experience, okay, what would it be like to be this character and to live her everyday life? Or maybe you actually do some of your writing outside in nature. I do my bi-weekly newsletter that I write for my email subscribers. I always draft that by hand in a notebook, often sitting in the garden, for example. So that also brings in an act of slow living into the process of creating. So just think about what are some things that brings you calm, that slows you down, and that brings you this more mindful appreciation of the world around you. And how can you bring that into your creative process and the things that you create, and how can you use that as you're creating? So yeah, today I am gonna pick some flowers, and then I'm gonna sit and draw them. So I'm definitely not an artist. I draw just for fun and use them in my Instagram posts sometimes. It's just something I'm dabbling with because it's fun. So I'm gonna pick some flowers, which is a slow living activity, and then I'm gonna sit down and draw them, which arguably is a slow living activity as well, for me at least. So yeah, let's pick some flowers.
As willows align, we lose track of time. Head up high, now we climb. Oh, dreamy, breezy, we go. Easy, easy on our tiptoes. Undercover agents of the other. Beyond gravel, beyond dawn. A bigger scale the world inhales as we go. I wouldn't want it any other way, no. Dreamy, breezy, we go. Easy, easy on our tiptoes.
That was so nice. I now have some little drawings of flowers in my book. So yeah, the next idea I have for you is to use slow living activities to bring some calm into your work days, creative work days or creative work time, and to get stress out of the process. So like we talked about, we can blend in slow living activities into the process, but sometimes the creative process is just you doing some focused creative work. So it might be that you're sitting down writing a blog post, or you're editing a video, or you are working on your book or designing a website, whatever your creative craft is about. And that is going to be focused time for you. You're going to be in the work, you're going to be focused. Hopefully you're going to feel inspired and motivated to do the work. And that is a wonderful space to be in as a creative. That's sort of what we want. We want to tap into the flow, and we want to be sort of focused on our creative work. That's when we creatives feel joyful and it's fun as well. But the backside to this is that we can tend to overwork a little bit as creatives. Because we're passionate about our work and because it's fun and enjoyable and we're inspired and want to keep going, we can push ourselves a little bit too hard. We can sit down at our computer writing for too many hours. We can say, oh, just a little bit more. I'm almost there. So we sit a little bit longer than we intend to. Or we're trying to get to something and we're struggling a little bit, so we're getting a little bit tense, and it's we're in this space. And to not have your creative work feel stressful, or after having creative feeling tense and wound up, it can be really good to bring in some calm into that process. And also, if you're finding that you are running into block in your creative work as well, if you are feeling stuck and just sitting there and it's not getting out like you want it to, that can also be a good time to bring in some calm. So what we want to do here is to have some slow living activities at hand that you can bring into your creative time. So for example, if you sit down to write, maybe you write for an hour and then you go for a little walk outside. Or you take a break to make a cup of tea and you sit for a moment with your cup of tea and just relax and breathe and let the thoughts wander, and then you come back to it. Or if you, like me, have a little garden, you can go outside, potter in the garden a little bit. Just do something that brings you out of your brain and into your hands a little bit more. When I did my creative work on weekends, I used to, for example, bake. So I would break up my days. I did my creative work in the weekend, so maybe I would start something and then I would take a break to make a dough, a bread dough, and then I would rest for a while, and I would go back to my writing, and then I could return to make the bread and have a nice, just make myself a nice sandwich when the bread was done. So having these things at hand that you can bring in, and you can make this a habit that you always, for example, take some sort of slow living break after an hour. You can set a timer if you want to, or you can nurture just feeling when you are pushing yourself a little bit too hard and you need a break. For me nowadays, this is sort of, it comes very natural to me, so I don't need to have any firm boundaries or habits around it. But if you feel like you are very often pushing yourself a little bit hard, you're overworking a little bit, you're getting a little bit tense in your creative process, then think about how you can bring in more of that and make it more of a habit in your creative time. So there are loads and loads of stories of writers, especially, who have made it into their creative process that they go for long walks, just because the brain just sometimes need on things and get thinking about the creative ideas that you're working on, and moving the body and getting out of the brain a little bit and getting out of the overthinking can bring a lot of creativity as well. It can help you move forward in your process of creating. So it's not just nice, it's also good for creating. So a win-win. So that is my second tip. Have some slow living activities at hand that you can pick from, just to bring in a little bit more calm into the creative process. And with that in mind, I'm now going to make myself a cup of tea.
As willows align, we lose track of time. Head up high, now we climb. Dreamy, breezy, we go.
There we go, I got my tea. And the last thing I want to talk about is to embrace slow living more long term as well, to choose a more slower pace in your creative life. So we live in a society that has a hustle culture. And even if we're more and more people who are saying that, no, we want a slower life, we want a slower pace, there is still a hustle culture, and that shows up in the creative world as well. So be it the write a book in a month, or the content schedules that people say you have to stick to, or just the sense that you should be moving forward faster. Sometimes people close to us who aren't creatives can feel like we are moving slow because they're only seeing sort of the output. They're not seeing the whole process and not appreciating how long the creative process can take. So that can as well feel like, I'm moving so slow. And I'm here to say that that is okay. Whatever pace is right for you is the best one for you. So I have done this in many ways in my creative life. So from being okay with it taking me a couple of good years to write a book, that is fine. It's not uncommon for it to take a couple of years to write a book, for example. To embracing a bit of a slower pace with my content sometimes. So my newsletter goes out bi-weekly. That was changed from weekly many years ago. I changed it from weekly to bi-weekly, just to give myself a little bit more of space to write them. And I feel like that also works well, really well for me. And I'm doing the same here on YouTube. So when I went full-time with my creative business back in April, I decided that I would try to post videos weekly, and it didn't feel like it would be hard because I was already posting roughly bi-weekly when I was doing my creative business just a couple of days a week, weekends and Fridays. So I thought it would be fine, that won't be a problem. But after posting videos weekly and making videos weekly for a couple of weeks, I started feeling like it was a too quick pace for me. Making videos takes time. It takes quite a lot of time, and the kind of videos I really enjoy to make, like this video, like going outside and being a little bit here and there, and having it be more than just me talking and nothing else. That is the videos I always enjoy most creating. And they take a little bit of time to make. So yeah, I was starting to feel like I was a little bit fed up with filming every week, and I started feeling uninspired, and I started feeling like, yeah, it was just a little bit too much. So what I've decided to do is to go back to bi-weekly, because that just works better with I think that's just my cycle of creativity when it comes to videos. Bi-weekly is absolutely fine, that's not a problem at all. So going back to that rhythm has really brought back the inspiration for me to make videos. It feels good again, it feels, yeah, not stressful. And that is always a value for me. Creativity shouldn't feel stressful. The creative process shouldn't feel stressful. And just because I'm now running a business, that doesn't mean that it should be stressful either. Sometimes I think when we say business, we feel like it should be more hustly. We have to work harder. We have to stress a little bit to make it work. That's part of the deal. And I just simply reject that. So yeah, that is the last thing, that my suggestion for you, to bring in a little bit more patience, bringing a little bit more slow into your more long-term view of your creative work as well. You don't have to write a book in a month. You don't have to get that thing done by a certain date unless there's some sort of contract involved. If you've set a really firm deadline, a really short deadline for yourself, why have you set that? What is the reason? Is there a fear there? Is there impatience there? Or could you just allow yourself a little bit more time with this, if that's what you need and want? So those were my ideas and tips for bringing in more slow living into your creative process and your creative life. So yeah, I hope you got some nuggets out of it. I will leave some links down below to a couple of blog posts I've written on the subject as well, so you can dig into that if you want to. I would love as well to hear in the comments what you do to bring in more slow living into your creative life. It's the actual creative work that you're doing, or if it's in the breaks, or if it's in embracing a little bit of a slower pace as well. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. Give it a little like if you did, and if you're new here, hello and welcome. You can subscribe down below, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!